So now if you want to compare a date that you select, for example, let's remove this date that has this form with this date that is an ISO string date, you just have to convert this date. So what we want to see, we want to see an ISO string. So how would you do this? You would simply console.log this date, that would be a new date, that would be passed the date that lives in data.date, and then you would make it an ISO string. So let's see if this works. So now when I click on today, you can see we have 2 dates. The one that is provided by default by this calendar, and the one that is more computer friendly, and that will make it way easier for us to compare this date. You see, it's exactly the same. It's 2023. We don't know that it's a Sunday, but it doesn't matter. January, 22, and then the time. We don't care about the time, we just want to know the date. So if I select this one, just as a reminder, then we can split it on the T, on the uppercase T, and you can see that now we can retrieve the date if we use, as we did in the previous video, the first element, which is 0, not 1, it's 0, it starts at 0. So now that you know this, we'll be able to use again the single responsibility principle. What this means, it means simply that we want to have a function that will have the responsibility of displaying the videos, because now we want to see what video is associated with which day. And remember, in localStorage 2 videos ago, we stored 2 movies, one that we wanted to watch on January 20th, and one that we wanted to watch on January 17th. So we need to pass the date to a function that will have the responsibility of showing a movie. So let's call a function that we will create in a minute that will be called showMovie, and we will pass it the date, that is data.date, and we won't make it an ISO string. So let's make it an ISO string by casting it to a date and then to an ISO string. Just like that. So now we need this function, showMovie, which responsibility, and the name is clear, will simply be to display a movie for a specific date. So this showMovie function will be passed a date, the date that was clicked. So let's create a function. We know how to do this. We use the function keyword, and we want to name it showMovie. So let's just copy and paste so we don't make any mistake. And it will be passed to date, but we could name it whatever we want, because this will be whatever is passed here. So it would be this. This is passed to the function, and we retrieve it as date. Let's retrieve all the movies from localStorage. So you know that we have this get item function, and we want to get, what do we want to get? We want to get from localStorage something that is associated with the key of movies. So let's get this, the element in localStorage that is associated with this key of movie. But you remember that we need, now that we're back in JavaScript, to parse this back to an array. So we do this using json.parse. You will do it a lot in your own apps. And now it will be back to an array. So it will be an array of 2 elements. The first element, element 0, ready player 1. The second element, which is numbered 1 because it starts at 0, 0, 1. For 2 elements, 0, 1. And remember, if it doesn't exist, if there were no movies key, you would get nothing, and it would break your function. So you use this OR string. So if this is an array, perfect, it will be saved into this movie variable. And if there is nothing with the key of movies, we will just make this movies an empty array. So if everything goes right, we would have an array of 2 movies, or if there is nothing in local storage with this movies key, we will return an empty array, just like so. Now we need to find the movie that has the same date as the date that was passed. So to do that, actually I could use a const because this will never change. So let's make it a constant. And let's do the same here, we'll make it a constant. We'll retrieve the movie that has the same date as this one. So we need to find inside this movies array a movie that has the same date. And we want to retrieve a movie, singular. So what movie do we want to retrieve? You want to go through this movies array to find, and there is a find method that you will use a lot. So it's good to see it right now. So this function must find something, and we must tell it that we want to find a movie that has a date identical to this date. So we need to do something that may sound weird if you've never done it before, but we can pass a function to a function. It's called a callback. When you pass a function to a function, it's called a callback. So to pass a function, the other way to create a function is like that. So instead of using function, you can use this. You use parentheses, which is equivalent to this one. And then the body of the function, which is equivalent in our case, for example, to these lines or to these lines, the lines between the curly brackets here or here, it's this. So this is a function. So this find function will call this function for every movie inside these movies. So as we have two movies, it might be called twice, but find is very specific. As soon as it finds something that matches a condition, it stops. So if you have 10 elements, if we had 10 movies, and if the second one matched the condition we would create here in a second, would be executed just 2 times. If it found the movie that has the right condition after 5 inside the 5th movie, it would stop at the 5th execution. So what would you want to find? You want to return the movie, and that has a specific date. We don't care about the hour, the time. So we split, as we did before, on the t, because, sorry, we need the date. On the date, we split on the t, uppercase T, and we retrieve the first element of the array. So the element at position 0. So if the movie that is currently passed, and we can, let's name this one movie here. So we go through this movies array, and every movie that we iterate over, let's name it movie. But you could very well call this movie M. So let's do this. So you can, there is no confusion between this movie and every movie inside these movies, plural. So we take every movie. What we're interested in is the date. So we take from this movie the date, we split on the t, and we take the first element, so the date, and we want to compare this one with this date, the date that we selected on the calendar. And so we know that this date also has a time that we don't care about, so let's split on the t and only keep the date, so the first element. And if there is a match, if we find something, it will be saved here. Let's see if it works. So we console.log the movie that we found. And also, to see how this works, I will put a debugger here. So it will stop the execution here, and we will be able to inspect. So let's select, we know that we have a movie on the 17th. Let's select it. So we see that what is passed is this date. Okay, it's logical because we've just clicked on January 17th. Now, let's go to the next line. So now we're trying to retrieve the movies from local storage. Did it work? Yeah, it works because we have 2 movies. And now we want to see which movie here inside local storage has a date of January 17th. So it should be Terminator. So we will go through every movie and we will compare. So it found it, it compared the date, then it executed the first time with Ready Player One, and the second because it didn't find a match between this date that was on the 17th and Ready Player One, which date was Ready Player One that was planned to be watched on the 20th. So on the second time it went to Terminator and it found that it was Terminator that was planned to be watched on the 17th. Let's see if when we click on the 20th it's Ready Player One. So let's get inside it, retrieve the movies. Then we want to find a movie which date is the 20th January, so it should be Ready Player One. And now we can see that what is selected is Ready Player One. It works. Ready Player One.